this is Matthew 7:24. I wanted to thank you guys for sticking with me. I know I haven't been on posting many videos lately, but there's so many things manifesting with behind the scenes. But what you have to realize is everything has to be in place before God lets this go. This is this is the Ezekiel wheel / tree of life. I mean, everything with Trump, with the world, all has to be in place before he lets this go. I'm still working on some funding. Funding is always a hard thing. I don't like asking for money. I hate it. If you haven't noticed that, I don't do it very often. But I do need some funding to finish the tree of life. I need some parts to refine things. New hose, better hose. If you guys would like to donate, please donate. At the top of my page on the right side, there is a link, a PayPal link on YouTube, or you can go directly to my Facebook page and I can direct you. Okay, quickly here, I want to show you a verse that talks about the witty inventions that are coming in the end of days that come about, but there's also trials and tribulations during this time, and it has happened that this man has to go through in order to get to where he needs to be. All right, here we go.
Unto you, O men, I call, and my voice is to the sons of man. O ye simple, understand wisdom, and ye fools, be ye of an understanding heart. Hear, for I will speak of excellent things, and the opening of my lips shall be right things. For my mouth shall speak truth, and wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are in righteousness, there is nothing froward or perverse in them. They are all plain to him that understandeth, and right to them that find knowledge. Receive my instruction, and not silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is better than rubies, and all the things that may be desired are not to be compared to it. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and find out knowledge of witty inventions. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride, and arrogancy, and the evil way, and the froward mouth do I hate. Counsel is mine, and sound wisdom. I am understanding, I have strength. By me kings reign, and princes decree justice. By me princes rule, and nobles, even all the judges of the earth. I love them that love me, and those that seek me early shall find me. Riches and honor are with me, yea, durable riches and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, yea, than fine gold, and my revenue than choice silver. I lead in the way of righteousness, in the midst of the paths of judgment, that I may cause those that love me to inherit substance, and I will fill their treasures. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way, before his works of old. I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or ever the earth was. When there were no depths, I was brought forth, when there were no fountains abounding with water. Before the mountains were settled, before the hills, was I brought forth, while as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set a compass upon the face of the depth, when he established the clouds above, when he strengthened the fountains of the deep, when he gave to the sea his decree that the waters should not pass his commandment, when he appointed the foundations of the earth, then I was by him, as one brought up with him, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him, rejoicing in the habitable part of his earth, and my delights with the sons of men. Now therefore hearken unto me, O ye children, for blessed are they that keep my ways. Hear instruction, and be wise, and refuse it not. Blessed is the man that heareth me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the posts of my doors. For whoso findeth me findeth life, and shall obtain favour of the Lord. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death.
One other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about today is God cannot be put in a box. He never will be put in a box. And if you think that he can't do things that are beyond our comprehension, you do not know or understand the God we serve. Right now, I want you to listen to a podcast from Donna Clement. It is very good, and it discusses what some of the anointed of the past had to go through before they rose up. All right, here we go.
Today I want to talk to you about Joseph and the coat of many colors and destiny. And I have with me my cousin Llewellyn Roberts Jr., who is the grandson of Dr. Fred Roberts, my late great uncle. And you are listening to Secrets Podcast. My name is Donna Clement Petrushka. So let me start out with just talking a little bit about destiny. And what brought this to my mind was I was watching a teaching my dad did that he had originally done for the School of the Prophets. And he was talking about identity and destiny. And I'm not going to go into all of that. At some point, we're going to re-release a lot of those teachings. And he, of course, teaches that much better than I would. But I just wanted to give some of my thoughts on specifically the story of Joseph with the coat of many colors. If you are not familiar with the story, I'm sure you are, but if you're not, you can find it in Genesis chapter 37 is where it begins, and I encourage you to go read the story of Joseph. I won't do that for the sake of time today. But most of you listening will be familiar with that story and know it. What I wanted to focus on today more than anything was destiny. And Joseph's story is a really good example of what you go through when you are moving toward your destiny. And the one thing that all of us need to remember and realize is that journey is not always easy. It's probably never easy. And we often ask ourselves, well, why? Why is that? And to me, what I get out of it, reading that story and listening to what my dad taught about it and what others have taught about it too, is that there's a learning process that you have to go through before you're actually qualified to step into that ultimate destiny that you have. And so I looked at the story of Joseph, and I actually just recently on my weekly prayer post wrote about Joseph because I had just listened to my dad teach on it. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to talk about this on the podcast too. So what happened with Joseph is the first thing that I noticed about Joseph is he was raised in a culture that was completely different to where he ended up, because he ended up in Egypt. And, he was a Jewish boy, a shepherd boy, and he had a simple life, really. Excuse me. And then something remarkable happened, and God showed him in the form of dreams, things that, didn't seem normal, I would say. What would you say, Bali?
Yeah, well, you got to remember that he was 17 years old too.
Yeah.
And he was just a young boy. And he just tended flock and his father loved him.
Yes.
And like what you were saying about the different to get to your destiny. If you look at the story of Joseph, it was different phases of his life. So it was different forms of faith that he had to accomplish before he got to his destiny.
Yes, exactly.
So we cannot look at our destiny and say, I'm going to be there tomorrow.
Right.
It has to take steps.
And that can be frustrating for people because God may show you what you're going to be and you think, oh, I'm going to get there now. I'm ready to go. And you may in your heart be ready, but there's things you have to overcome.
Well, a lot of times,
I think.
What happened with him was God showed him as a teenager who he will be. And when he told people, they got jealous because they said, we're not going to bow to you.
Well, that's
we're not
the
going to
exact,
do this.
the
We're
exact,
not going to do that.
That was the next point that I was going to make, is that when he told the dreams and when his father gave him that beautiful coat of many colors, the reaction he got from his own brothers, from the people who were familiar with him,
his half-brothers,
was hate and jealousy.
Yeah.
And it got so bad that they sold him into slavery.
Because they said, we will not bow to you.
Yes, we're not going to bow to you. Who do you think you are, little boy?
He was just like, I had a dream.
And they were already jealous because the dad had given him the coat of many colors, and they sitting there like, we've done all this and we've done all this, and what right do you have to make this claim?
But a lot of times too, when God shows you your destiny in an early stage of your life, or in your Christian walk, or when you get saved and God says, I'm going to use you to be an evangelist, a prophet, a whatever, doesn't mean that you're going to be that now.
Right.
Because people are going to, you can walk around and say, hey, I'm going to be a prophet. Yeah, no, you're not. Because there's only so many people, there's only this, and they always give you the problems.
And it's also the familiarity.
Yeah.
The people who are closest to you sometimes are the ones who will have the hardest time seeing, because they know you too well.
They know your
history. My dad had that problem. I mean, he had that problem back in South Africa when he first started his ministry. Everybody was rejecting him. They wouldn't even let him into Bible school. They said, oh, you're not Bible school material because you don't fit this mold. And if you look through the Bible, most of the people that God used did not fit the mold.
David.
Yeah, David's a perfect example. But what happened to Joseph was, first of all, he's sold into slavery. Then he ends up in Potiphar's house. Now, Potiphar was an officer and the head of the Pharaoh's kitchen, or something like that. And so he ends up in this pretty good position, considering he'd been sold into slavery. And then he gets accused. And then he gets thrown into prison.
Of rape, yeah.
And so he's falsely accused, and then thrown into prison. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people will find themselves in a place in their life where they feel imprisoned. And it's like, this is not what God showed me. This is not what was revealed to me that I would be. Now I'm sitting in a prison. And when I listened to my dad talk about it, he was saying how he had to go through degrees of rulership. He was in Potiphar's house first. So it's like a training ground. Yeah. And then, he's in this other culture. He's taken out of his culture. This is something I identify with myself, being from South Africa, then brought into a different culture by moving to America. You have to learn the language of the land that you're in. And that doesn't just mean like an actual language. It means a culture. You have to understand the way they see things, the way they live, as being different from what you're used to. And the only way that you're going to actually make a difference is by learning that culture and that language, so that you can have a productive result when you're communicating and when you're acting in your gifting. Mm-hmm. And so Joseph was a dreamer, so he's thrown into prison. Well, what happens when he's thrown into prison is that his gift is sharpened, because there he is practicing it. So there he is with the butcher and the baker, and he has these dreams again. And what he dreams happens. And then the butcher forgets about him.
Yeah.
And you think, well, why in the heck did the book, how could he forget him?
And he even said, don't forget what I told you.
Yes, and then
Don't
how could he
me."
forget him? And the point my dad made that really got to me was because it wasn't the right time.
Yeah.
And timing is everything.
Wow.
I remember my dad talking about how it's like a dance with God, and you have to be in rhythm when you dance. You know a little bit
Yeah.
about dance.
A tad. I used to.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, he was teaching kids at church in South Africa to dance, and is quite a talented dancer, actually. He's got the rhythm. But that rhythm and being in step with God and his timing is often difficult for us. You know, because we just like, we know where we're supposed to be and we just want to go there. But you've got to, all of it is a learning process. And when you get there at the right time, if you get there before you're at the right time, it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
You've got to be prepared. And
Well, there's two things that I see. First
Yes.
of all, when he was in Potiphar's house,
yes,
Potiphar was the head of the guards, the generals, and he was high ranking. So because Joseph learned everything about the armies and about that, because he was in that house, he was in that environment all the time, he was continuously learning, and he was the best of the best. And then once, of course, when the accusation came and he ended up in the prison and he had the dreams, like you said, God had to wait. Well, Joseph had to wait for God to reveal the gift through the Pharaoh.
yes.
Pharaoh had to have a dream.
Pharaoh had to have a dream,
like
yes.
Joseph had a dream.
Yes.
So Pharaoh had to have a dream where no one, even the magicians and the sorcerers couldn't
Yes.
do it.
Yes, exactly.
So his gifting had to come to Pharaoh.
Yes, very good
So
point.
that Pharaoh
Excellent.
had to see the gift.
Exactly. And
And if he
that's
wasn't
also
in
important
prison,
too, because
that wouldn't have happened.
there's all kinds of alignments that have to happen in order for it to, and really whatever position you're in, you have to remember that. You have to remember that, okay, I'm feeling imprisoned right now. What do I do? Sharpen your gift.
Well, if he didn't
wait
go
for the right time.
Yeah. Well, if he didn't go
Recognize it.
if he didn't say to the baker and them, tell them their dream, if he didn't do that, if he didn't follow what God was drawing him to do, he wouldn't have ended up in Pharaoh. So if you're in prison and you're feeling like you're all alone and the whole world is just turned against you, don't stop using your gift.
Right.
Because if you stop, God can't move you to the next
Yes.
step.
Don't give up.
Don't
Just
give up.
keep sharpening your gift, whatever it is. And you know what it is.
Yeah.
You know, some people struggle to recognize that in themselves, you know. And that's another part of it too, is what are you good at and what do you enjoy? What brings joy to you? When you know, for me, the thing that brings me the most joy is writing, because I'm a writer. That's the thing that I do the best. I can speak okay, but I write well.
I
I'm
call
a
you the storyteller.
I am the story. Lou always calls me the storyteller. I'll read a book and then I'll tell him about it, and he says he enjoys hearing me tell him about the book more than actually reading the book.
So why read it?
But you know, the important thing to remember is those degrees of rulership that you have to go through in order to reach that ultimate place. And God will send you a butler and a baker so that you can practice your gift, even when you're confined. And I'm sure Joseph must have been confused, but he still practiced that gift. He still recognized, hey, someone's dreaming and I know about this.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to interpret those dreams. And he interpreted them accurately. Then the butler goes, the poor baker didn't make it, but the butler...
Nor did the candlestick maker.
But the butler made it and forgot him for a season. But then at the right time, when Pharaoh had his dream, the butler said, hey, there's that guy in the prison.
Yeah.
And he interpreted my dream and he was right. And so he tells the Pharaoh. And, you know, something my dad said was, your destiny dictates your present circumstances, you know. And so you have to kind of remember that. And Joseph also, and this is going back to learning the language and learning a culture, is that he was in Potiphar's house, so he's in a leader's house. So he learns about that realm. Then he's thrown into a prison, and he learns about that place and what it's like to be in a prison, to be in prison
with nothing,
to be in that place. And sometimes you might find yourself in a place. Maybe you're not in prison, maybe you are in prison, but you aren't in a good place. And it could be that you need to be in that place in order to be able to identify with others who find themselves imprisoned in some way or in that place later on. That you can turn back and say, hey, I've been there and I know how you feel. And they're more likely to listen to you if you've been there like that. I'll use drug and alcohol counselors as an example here. Drug addicts or alcoholics are going to tend to listen to someone who has been a drug addict or alcoholic and understand how they feel and what they're going through much more than someone who has not.
Yeah.
Because someone who's been through that and overcome it and then is in a situation where they're counseling them knows exactly how they feel. And so Joseph knew what it was like to be in prison. Joseph knew what it was like to be in Potiphar's house.
Well, you're not going to get in a car with somebody who doesn't know how to drive.
Exactly. Very good point.
So.
And so he learns all these different aspects of the Egyptian culture. And sharpening his gift the whole time, and then the right moment arrives. And there he is brought before Pharaoh and interprets the dream. And it all like comes full circle, and there he ends up. Pharaoh loves him. He ends up second to Pharaoh. Actually, I took when I was in university, I took a class on. It was actually a humanities class on culture. So they focused more on like arts and stuff like that as opposed to like historical fact and stuff. And when I was in that class, one thing I learned was in Egyptian culture, everybody who worked under Pharaoh was called son of Pharaoh. But the Pharaoh at the time called Joseph father. He was known as father of Pharaoh because Pharaoh loved him so much. And so that's quite significant too, because you've got a Jewish culture coming into an Egyptian culture, and that leader, that Pharaoh, loved him so much he didn't call him son, he called him father. And so that was something very interesting I learned in that class, amongst many other things about, and we were studying Egyptian culture, but that popped up in there, and it was very interesting to me. And
well, that's kind of weird, because if you look down the heritage of Joseph, Abraham was the father of many nations.
Exactly.
And goes down to his seed.
Great point. That's true.
And his multicolored coat was the many nations.
Oh, brilliant.
And then now Pharaoh calls him father.
Exactly.
So his heritage from Abraham was carried right through.
And it's in the language and in how he's referred to and how he's talked to. And the beautiful thing was, I think this is the sort of redemptive and most beautiful part of the story is that Joseph ends up seeing there's going to be 7 fat years and 7 lean years. So God gave him that insight into what Pharaoh was seeing. So there they are aligned together. And Joseph is able to interpret, okay, this is what you're seeing.
Yeah.
So we better store the grain because we got 7 years. The things are going to be good, and then there's going to be 7 bad years. And during those 7 lean years, his brothers, the very brothers who betrayed him, are the ones he in turn fed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would have starved.
And he learned how to take care of the grain in Potiphar's house.
Yes.
He never knew that as a shepherd boy.
No, and he would never have been able to know that as a shepherd boy.
When Pharaoh gave him a task now, fine, store it up. Now he knows how to do it because God trained him in a time where why am I here?
Exactly.
I love my father, but I've been taken away from him because God was training him to save the nations.
Exactly. And that's such a beautiful, if you think about that, it's such a beautiful story. Because in the end, he got to reconcile with the family.
And his father before he died.
And there's a forgiveness in there. And it's just, it's so touching and it's so full of hope.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you apply the concepts of this very, very ancient story, this very, very ancient event, apply those concepts to your life, and you know, when things are difficult and you feel like, oh, this is like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why do I feel betrayed? Why am I imprisoned? Why am I going through this?
God, why are you silent?
Yes, because you could be in training for something much greater. And so I think ultimately today my goal is to encourage you, if you are in that place, to not give up, to go after the gift that's inside of you. God gave each and every one of us a gift, and not one is more important than the other. It all ties together. It's all aligned together. And
you've got to remember too that the scripture doesn't tell you every second of every day.
No.
So Joseph wasn't walking around going, praise Jesus, I've got a destiny, praise the Lord.
Yes.
He's not doing that. He's probably lying, he's probably weeping.
Yes.
He's probably going through.
Especially when he was in prison and he'd been falsely accused.
Falsely
to be
accused.
falsely accused, a false accusation is a terrible thing.
you're thrown in a pit.
Yes.
Then you
By your
sold to
own
these
brothers.
people that are whipping you and take you to a town you've probably never been to. Now you're
Completely
in a
different
whole
world.
different culture. And then now you don't even know anything about anything. Being
Right.
accused of rape and then ending up in prison, it must have blown his mind.
But it ultimately prepared the way
It
for
did.
him and put him into a position where all the things were made right. And then when the bad times came,
He was prepared.
he was ready. Egypt was ready, and he was able to feed his own people.
And they came to Egypt.
And they came to him. And they came to Egypt. And so, what a powerful and in-depth story that is. You know, it really spoke to me. And so that's why a couple of weeks ago I put that as my prayer post. Because I was sitting there just pondering that and thinking, you know, what am I going to share today? As we pray, because I like to have something, you know, in those prayer posts, that it's not just, okay, I'm going to pray for you. Even though obviously I am, and it brings me such joy to be able to do that. But I also want to be able to apply that a concept or a thought or something helpful besides I'm just going to pray for you.
Yeah.
Because you need more than that sometimes. And that really spoke to me in my own situation in that moment, and it was like, I'm giving it to you, and I know other people out there feel like I'm feeling, so let's come together, identify with each other, and help each other through this, and you know, agree with each other in prayer. And there's so much power in that agreement. And so you know, you can apply these concepts to your own life, and what is meant for evil, God can turn around for good, and so can you.
Yeah.
And it's not just God. You can't just sit down and wait for God to do things. It's your responsibility. You have a responsibility, each and every one of you individually, to recognize, to be able to see it, to be able to move toward it.
God is a God of action.
Mm-hmm.
When he was in Potiphar's house, he didn't just sit around and go, oh, I'm a slave. He worked.
Yeah.
He learned. He got involved. And so when you're in a situation, you might not be in the best job. You might not be where you wanted to be 10 years ago. But just look at what you've learned and apply it to your life and say, God, now I want to move to the next level, and let him take you, because now you've grown with the experience.
Yes, and take responsibility for yourself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you make mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes. Learn from those mistakes. Don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again. Because a mistake can be a lesson or a sin.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can make a mistake and learn from it, and then it becomes a lesson.
Yeah.
But if you make a mistake and keep making that same old mistake over and over again, you're going to get stuck in that prison. And that is ultimately what a sin is.
Yeah.
You know, look, we could go really deep into that, but we're not going to do that. But I'm just saying, you know, if you're able to recognize that, because then you are an overcomer, and that's what being a warrior is all about.
Yeah.
When my dad prophesied the warriors of the new millennium, and he called all of you warriors, that's what he was talking about. And part of being a warrior is being an overcomer.
Not a warrior.
Yeah, don't worry. You're a warrior, W-A-R. But you are an overcomer. And so I just want to encourage anyone listening today that you are an overcomer. You are a warrior. You can do this. And I'm praying for you, and I know you're praying for me. And Lou, sitting here with me, thank you for joining me today.
Of course, it was fun.
And before we go, I should probably mention our sponsor.
Yes, that'd be a good idea.
So we are actually sponsored by our dear partners through our Israel partnership and Boots on the Ground. So those of you who are Boots on the Ground and Israel partners, or even general partners with the House of Destiny, I just want to thank you so much for what you are giving, because you're helping to sponsor my Little Secrets podcast. And if you're not a partner, I encourage you to look into it. You can go to www.houseofdestiny.tv and have a look at our partner programs. And it's not just sponsoring my podcast, it's doing many things. You are helping us help Israel. We always stand with Israel. Israel is forever. And Boots on the Ground is our missions. There are so many missions, I can't even list them all right now. I don't think I have time, but it's all on the website. Everywhere from China to Cambodia
to the USA.
To the US of A. We are being the hands and feet of Jesus, and so we couldn't do that without you and without your help. And so if you're not a partner, go and have a look and see if you feel led to partner with us. It means so much to us, and so do you. And I just want to thank you, and I want to thank you, Lou, for joining me today. This is Secrets Podcast, and I am Donna Clement Petrushka.
Like Donna said, you can't put God in a box. I mean, wow, look what's happening today. There's things unfolding that you guys haven't even fathomed yet that have happened with the Tree of Life and the Jacob and the timeline. But what I want to touch on here is even God's people are clueless when it comes to God's timeline and prophetic things of the Bible. They've been asleep for so long that the wicked have put themselves in the places, in high places, and God's people just sat back and let it happen. I mean, it is crazy what the wicked has done, and God's people have allowed it. For instance, the schools. Look at the schools. They put all the leftist people in the schools, the ones that are unbelievers, the ones that do not believe in God's ways. Man, it irritates me what we have allowed the wicked, evil to do, the darkness in this world, and we sat on our hands as God's people and allowed it to happen. Well, that can't happen anymore. We have to step up. We have to take our place, because God is on our side. He's with us. We can do this. This is the end times. These are the days that we take it back from the wicked because we slept. And we will not go unjudged because we slept for so long. He is irritated, and he will judge even his people. He will humble them. And people that say there is not judgment coming are wrong, but he's not going to destroy us. It's not about destroying us. If he loves his people, what does he do? He punishes them and brings them back to him because you are his children. If you love your children, the Bible says you will punish them when they do wickedly. And that's exactly what he is about to do. But he loves us, and that's why judgment, even to America, with the fire and the floods that have happened, and the winds and the rain and all those things are, it is to bring us back to him, humble us, know that he loves you. God has to make the crooked ways straight in order for his works to come about in the end of days. He has to take the foolish out of power and put in his people, and take the vanities away of this world, all the things of this world that have corrupted his people even, and the people of darkness that don't believe in him. They are going to be destroyed, and his people will be humbled. And the other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is the Jacob. Who is the Jacob in the Bible? I know there's a Jacob of the beginning, but there's also a Jacob of the end times. And so many people get this confused about who is who and what is what in the Bible. And the church, the Catholic Church especially, has hid end time prophecies from us for a long time about everything that's unfolding right now. That it's like they're purposely, the wicked, the snakes are purposely hiding all the good stuff. I mean, they took the prophets out of the church, and told them, no, you are fake and just don't do this. But you know what? The wicked, the evil, the darkness, they use prophets all the time, and they do prophesy about stuff. Look at, for instance, look at all the music out there that prophesies events happening in the end days. That a lot of that is Satan's prophets that prophesy that. But we can do the same, and don't think we can't. And we will, and we do. But people, the church needs to get the prophets back into the church. And the churches that don't want that, they need to go away. Again, I wanted to touch a little bit on Jacob and his life and what it says about him in the Bible. Almost every single book in the Bible talks about the end time Jacob. But the problem is the church doesn't realize who Jacob becomes in the end of days. I'll tell you who Jacob becomes in the end of days. He becomes the anointed one. And who is the anointed one? The one that comes from the north with a whirlwind. And I'll explain a little bit more of that in a few minutes. That Jacob is also surnamed Jacob before he is anointed. And that is in also Psalms and in Isaiah. And what is Jacob's anointing? How does he get anointed? Well, he is given a lamp from God. You know what that lamp is? The lamp is a volcano, and that volcano's name is Lassen. I know it hasn't happened yet, but watch it happen. And Jacob, you know how Jacob serves God? He doesn't do it through gifts and stuff like that. He does it through his sins. It talks about that in Psalms. And people miss this. You know, the Son of Man does not come in the clouds like people think. Yes, they're clouds, but they're clouds the size of your hand, but yet they're the biggest clouds in the sky. He comes via the cloud, internet cloud. And that's how the whole world sees him. And people are so mistaken if they don't believe that was known. You cannot put God, like I said before, you cannot put God in a box. The sad part is, the devil knows more about what's about to happen than God's people. He deceived so many, he turned everything upside down, which confused God's people, and the wicked were taught the correct meanings of things, and they even know who Jacob is. I mean, it's in some of their videos. It's crazy, I know, but you gotta know that you can't put God in a box. The wicked no more than most of God's people, which is really sad. And then the wicked also use things on us. They use vaccinations on our kids, which dumb them down. They use fluoride, and they use Adderall, and all that kind of stuff, which Adderall is methamphetamines. They're feeding our children methamphetamines to get better grades in school, which they say they got a disability, which they do not. God wires everybody different for a reason. I mean, it's crazy. And also Jacob, he comes and mounts up, and his people mount up with eagle's wings and fly. Why do you think Jacob mounts up on eagle's wings? It's because Jacob is from Judah. The land of Judah is America. And they become strong. What else does Jacob do? He opens the two-leaf gates. What you say? What are the two-leaf gates? Well, the two-leaf gates. See, Jacob is the 7th and becomes the 8th. But Jacob is not alone either. Jacob has a woman, actually, surnamed O Israel, from her birth, that they team up and are one in the end of days. Jacob gets married, and Jacob is the anointed one, and he's been here since he was born, and that is how the anointed one comes. He comes and he's birthed here, he grows up here, he served with his sins, and so does Israel. But then overcomes the sins right before he rises up. And I mean right before. He has to go through a great transgression even before he rises up. Let's talk a little bit about the north whirlwind. Jacob comes with the north whirlwind to judge some of the wicked when he first starts to rise up. See, Jacob rises up for an hour, and he is himself before he gets anointed. And God teaches him things, even the dark magic that the wicked uses. He in Isaiah 42 or 45, it talks about how Jacob is given the powers that the wicked used against the world, but now is turned on the wicked, and he is given these powers of wind and the air, and he uses the north whirlwind and blows it towards the south to take down his enemies that come against him during the great transgression. And it actually was a man and a woman that came against him. It's in the Bible, it is biblical, and I tell you what, it has manifested, and they have been taken down and destroyed by things this world cannot even fathom. The two-leaved gates. Actually, the two-leaved gates has to do with part of the tree of life, bringing that about. The tree of life makes water rise from the rock once again. He does it in the beginning, and he'll do it in the end again with the second. And the second is more than the first, because the second had to go through all the trials and tribulations and be hated. You know, Jacob, it says in the Bible that Jacob has more enemies than hairs on his head, and his enemies despise him. They can't stand him. There's nothing real special about Jacob besides, he studies God. He never falls away from God. In the latter days, he turns to him after all those sins. He had to go through the pit to get to it. But while he was going through the pit, he never fell away from God. He always put him first, even though he was sinning. But that Jacob rises above that wickedness that comes against him and is not affected by it a lot, because he believes in the light and in God and never forgets where he comes from and overcomes the wicked. And part of his rising up is judgment for the wicked. Because when his enemies see that he's risen up, they will be humbled, and some of them will fall because they will not be able to believe what just happened. Whether you realize it or not, 70% of the end time books are about the Jacob and his rise to become the second. That's right, you heard it right, the second. His chosen one in the end of days. And his second, guess what, has the tree of life. And his second is given the power to rule and reign and be King of Kings. And more about the rock that water rises from the rock in the end of days, the two-leaved gates. The reason why it's called the two-leaved gates is because you're making and breaking barriers which are gates that allow energy to be released for free. That's what the two-leaved gates are all about. I'm still working on the tree of life, the two-leaved gates, and if you guys want to donate, because I do need help still on this project. I'm refining it. I need a new hose, a better hose this year to refine it even smaller, making everything more compact so it'll fit inside of your house and things like that. But I cannot release it till the lamp goes off, which is Lassen. And I know it sounds crazy, but you have to wait. When you're doing work for God, you have to wait for Him to give the okay. If I were to come out and with this free energy stuff before it was time, I guarantee you that the elite would take you out. It has to be the Jacob that does it, and it is the only way it works, is because they cannot hurt the Jacob, because it is prophesied that they're not allowed to. I know I've been real busy lately and not posting videos like I used to each week, but understand that Jacob, I have to go through lots of trials and tribulations and things and wicked that were in my group that come against me with unexpectedly, and I didn't see it coming because I didn't understand that part of the reading in the book until after it happened, and I can show you all that later. It'll be a testimony to the world when this is all gone through and finished. But I want you to know that every bit of the money that is donated for this project will go towards the funding of the tree of life, and will be an investment. And it is not made up. It's in the book. Everything I've ever told you is all biblical. And I know it's hard, really hard, and as a society we are impatient and want everything to be manifest right away. But know that we must wait on God Almighty, our Lord, the Father upstairs, to give us the right of way to finish this. I want to bless everyone that watches these videos and understands the works that He is doing, and I pray that you donate even just $5, a little bit, however to keep this going, because there's a hose I need, and it's about a $500 hose, and I'll put the link over here so you can see it. But please, this is God's work that needs to be finished in the end of days. In order for Jacob to rise up, the tree has to be all prepared and ready. So if he puts it in your heart to give to this channel, please go to the home page on the YouTube channel, and up in the right corner, just donate on the button that says PayPal. You can pay with a credit card, whatever you want to do. All right, everyone, have a good week, and I'll talk to you next week, hopefully. God bless.